some of you, maybe you were not here when I asked the question, in your social science curriculum, do you study anything about Robert Sobukwe? Who can tell me anything about Sobukwe? Do you study anything? They don't teach you about Robert Sobukwe. In your social science curriculum, do they teach you anything about Nelson Mandela? What do they tell you about Mandela? Raise up your hand and then tell me. Sure. He was the first black president. Anyone else? Huh? Sorry? Speak up. Be confident, man. Don't hold him simple. Tell me something about Nelson Mandela that they teach you. Where he was born. Where was Mandela born? Yeah? Someone else tell me, I want you to give me 5 points. So there's 2 now that I've received. Where he was born and that he was the first black president. Give me something else. Yes? That he went to prison for 27 years. That's number 3. Anyone else? Anyone else? Tell me something about Nelson Mandela that they teach you. Yeah? Nelson Mandela. Sure. He lived in Vilakazi Street in Soweto. Last point. Tell me something about him that they teach you. You see, I don't want to stand here and be like a boring teacher in front of your classroom. So that's why I'm asking you this question. You are young black kids. You learn about social sciences. You learn about maybe South African history. So there's something that they teach you there. And you, as the young black African children, you are the future of this country. So it's important that you know everything, you see, about our history, who you are. You know, and these are some of the things that I'm going to talk about, because before I go and speak about Sobukwe, I want to talk about what is history. So give me that one last point. What do they teach you about Nelson Mandela? One last point. Sure.
He was released on the 11th of February.
He was released on the 11th of February, 1990. Yeah. At least, so what I'm trying to make, the point I'm trying to make with this is that in your curriculum at school, they teach you about Nelson Mandela, right? Do they teach you anything about Steve Biko? Who knows about Steve Biko? Who knows about Steve Biko? Come on, guys. Steve Biko.
You know about Steve Biko, but they only tell us that he was
They only tell you that he was in prison with Nelson Mandela. That's what they teach you in the curriculum. What else? Tell me something about Steve Biko, guys. What grade are you doing? Grade 11. You can't tell me anything about Steve Biko. Huh?
They didn't give us more information about him.
They don't teach you about him. Alright, and now information. This is the point that I'm trying to make. This is one of the reasons why it's good that you guys, you visit museums. But outside of museums, you must love reading. You must go into libraries and read. Most of the time, we as black kids, we don't enjoy education because some of the things they teach us in school, we cannot relate to. We cannot relate to the history they teach us. Do they teach you anything about Jan van Riebeeck? Do you know who's Jan van Riebeeck? Do you learn anything about Jan van Riebeeck? You don't know who he is. Huh? Do you know who Charles Darwin is? You don't know who Charles Darwin? What do they teach you in social science? Share with me. Share with me, because the what? Songhai Empire. That's great. One. That's great. That's great. They teach you about the Songhai Empire. That's a good thing. What do you know about the Songhai Empire? If they teach you about the Songhai Empire, you must not just be in a classroom and know why Songhai Empire. You must know what did the people of Songhai do? What was that empire? What did it represent? So there must be something. You must have an interest when they teach you about Songhai Empire. You are lucky, you guys, because when I was in school like you guys, grade 11, they used to teach us about people who were called Jan van Riebeeck. Jan van Riebeeck is the first white man who came to settle here in South Africa. You see? Yes. He came on the 6th of April. He came with a ship, you know, that was called the VOC, the Dutch East Indian Company. It was Jan van Riebeeck, you see, who was the captain of that ship. They used to teach us about people who were called about Christopher Columbus. And they said that Christopher Columbus discovered America. He's the white man who discovered America. They used to teach us about people who were called Vasco da Gama. These people were called explorers. They were exploring the world. And they discovered us. They discovered the indigenous people of it's the Koi and all of that. So I'm glad that they are now teaching you about the Songhai Empire. What else do they teach you about in the social science? The what? The who? The Mughal Empire. What else? The Zulu War.
Remember the Blood River?
The Blood River.
Yes.
Sure.
And there was Shweshwe.
Sure. All right. What else, guys? The what? Don't whisper. Speak up. I want to hear you. What? How women of Muslims were treated. Now, guys, I wanted to ask these questions because, like I told you, when we were in high school in your position, we were taught that Africa was the land of savages, the land of the barbarians. African people did not have a history, you did not have a culture, you did not know anything about so-called civilization. You had no empires. That is what we were taught. In the history curriculum, the social sciences where we were studying, we were never taught about the Songhai Empire, the Mughal Empire, the Ghana empires, the Egyptian empires, the Kushite empires, the Mali Empire and the civilizations of Mali. Now, we thought that we had to wait for white people to come before we had education, for example. We thought that we had to wait for Europeans like Jan van Riebeeck to come here to colonize us and Christianize us before we had anything that was called a church, before we had anything that was called impahla, because Europeans, white people used to teach us that we used to dress in beige, you see. So part of the reasons why you need to learn about those Songhai empires and why I'm glad that they are teaching you about Mali, they are teaching you about Ghana today, is because you African people, you black children, Africa is the cradle of civilization. Do they teach you that in social science? Africa is the cradle of civilization. The first human beings that were created in the world. When God created human beings, those people were created where? In Africa. And according to history and even social scientists, the anthropologists, the oldest bones that are found today in the whole entire world, they are found here in Africa. They've gone to Europe, they've gone to Asia, they've gone to South America, but they cannot find the oldest human being. The oldest human being is found here in Africa. Before what was called the cradle of mankind here, which is here in South Africa, before that, the oldest bones were found in Ethiopia, deep in Ethiopia. They called those bones Dinkinesh, that's the other name. White people call those bones Ulusi. You see, those were the oldest fossils of a human being. And Dinky Nash or Dinky Nash, she was a black woman, like you see. Waifana Nombo Mama Baby, that black woman, she was born millions of years ago. And when Dinky Nash was born, during a time, there was no existence of any other nation. It was only Africans. It was only black people at that time. Dinky Nash or Dinky Nash, white people call her Ulus, you see. So, Vunukuluma history. What is history? What is this thing that they call history? Most of the time when they teach you about history, they make it seem like history is about, it dates something that happened in the past, you see. But history is not about only the past. History is about the past, the present, and the future. History, it's like a compass. It gives you a direction, it's a road map that a people use towards their future. So in order for you to understand why abantu abamnyama are in this situation that they are in today, why are black people living in townships today, why are black people experiencing this thing called racism today, you know, why were black people oppressed by a system called apartheid, you see. Why today do we have black people suffering from America, being shot and killed by white police officers, and no one gets arrested for killing a black person? Racism. The other way they call it, it's called white supremacy, you see. In social sciences, we were taught about a man who was called Charles Darwin. Do you know Charles Darwin? And you said no. As you grow, you will be taught about Charles Darwin. Who Charles Darwin is that white man who came up with a theory called the theory of evolution. Charles Darwin said that human beings evolved. He says that abantu came from chimpanzees, which chimpanzees or baboons. You see, they have scientific names that they use to call it, but basically it's a chimpanzee or it's a baboon. And human beings evolved and then we became human beings. Most of the people who were scientists during the 1800s, the racist white people who were saying, we were inferior. They said, black people, you are inferior. The reason why you have this hair that you have, it's called kafir hair. It's because you are an inferior person. The reason why you have this big nose, you are an inferior person. Why you have these big, thick lips, you are an inferior human being. The reason why, you have big black skin, it's because you were cast by God. This is what they used to teach in history, in the classroom. And they made black people to feel inferior, like you have no history, Nina. You come from nowhere. You were only barbarians, you see. People like Charles Darwin, they are the ones who came up with theories that were justifying racism. Charles Darwin, in his book, he said that there is a time that is coming when the superior races of men will have to wipe out to extinction all the inferior races of men. So Charles Darwin, he is someone who believed that there were people who were superior and there were people who were inferior. Charles Darwin believed that Europeans were an evolved race. They were superior. They had superior intelligence. They were more intelligent and more wise than everyone. And black people were savages. You were close to monkeys and animals as a black person. And so that is why the scientists, Zagoma 1800s, even in the 1900s, they justified why they had to come and steal the land, yes, Africa. Because they said you have no culture, no history, and they have to make you a human being. So I want that as a background. That must be a background within the social sciences. So that is why then you had African people now, leaders, black leaders, like Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe. Black leaders like Bantu, Stephen Biko. You had black leaders in other African countries like Zimbabwe. You had a man called Mugabe in Zimbabwe. You had Koma Guinea, a man who was called Amilcar Cabral. You had Koma Kenya, a man who was called Jomo Kenyatta. You had Tanzania, a man who was called Julius Nyerere. You see, you had Koma Ethiopia, a man who was called Emperor Haile Selassie. You see, you had all of these African leaders. They were fighting against the very system in Tetangai, this system that I'm talking about. Racism, white supremacy, the oppression of black people, the belief that you are not a human being. In order for you to be a human being, you need to look like a white man. This is why Steve Biko came in the 1970s. Steve Biko was in school like you when he started to think about ideas of black consciousness. Steve Biko, he was the founder and the leader of a black consciousness movement. The Black Consciousness Movement, it started as an organization, SASO, South African Students Organization. Students like you see? And they said that we are not an inferior people. Steve Biko came and said, black power. Steve Biko came and said, black is beautiful. Bandoba mnyama, black children, black man and black women, love yourselves. Don't believe the lies that in order for you to be beautiful, you need to make your skin light. If you had a darker skin, for example, when we were growing up, and I believe in this time, you had a darker, beautiful black dark skin like maybe this little daughter here, they would laugh at you, the other kids. They would make fun of you. Today they call it the concept of my yellow bones. If you are more light skinned, white people have made us to believe that you are more beautiful. If you have a darker skin, you are ugly. If you have got your natural hair, your affair hair like this young man here, they make you believe that that hair is inferior. For you to look beautiful, you need to go what? Do what? Relax your hair. And even black women say that in Welezam, zifrat. When they say zifrat, they mean my hair is frustrated, something that is not nice, it's not something that is desirable. So it's white people who instill this, you see, through the system of racism, to make you believe that as a black person, when you look the way that God made you, you are an inferior being. So Steve Biko came with South African Student Organization and said that we must change the way we see ourselves and know that black is beautiful. You must be black and proud, you see, and he fought for something that was called the black power, you see. You had the June 1976, June 16, 1976, it was led by students who were aligned and members of the Black Consciousness Movement. One of these leaders who taught the students who led the June 16, 1976 was a man who was called Nkomo High. He was a member, a founder of the Black Consciousness with Steve Biko, Utiro. He was a student at the University of Teflop at that time. And he made a speech during graduation which made him to be expelled. They chased him out because he challenged the white authorities. He challenged the white principals, you see. And he spoke when during the graduation you had all of these white people sitting in the front. Abo mama betu, our black mothers and our black fathers were sitting right at the back. Some of them were even outside and they couldn't see or witness Abandwana Babu graduating. They killed many kings and queens up in Africa. In the Eastern Cape, African people fought years that lasted over 100 years. They are called, in the social sciences of history, they are called the frontier wars. Today they call them the South African Wars of Resistance. You had kings like King Yinsa, you had kings like King Sekukune, King Mushweshe, Queen Maboko, King Mandume. All of those people were the first people who were freedom fighters. They were fighting for the land. The last war of resistance that was fought by Abo Koko Nabo Koko Beli, it was fought in the year 1909. Don't sleep, wake up. 1909 was the last war of resistance that was fought. It was fought by a black man called King Bambata. King Bambata Kamanzinza. King Bambata Kamanzinza. I wanted to show you a picture here. This is the head, Ikandalga Bambata, the head of King Bambata. Because King Bambata, because he was fighting for the land of African people, he was killed. And after they killed him, they cut off his head. You see? And they used the head as a trophy. When you're playing sport and you receive a trophy because you have won, they used the heads, the skull of King Bambata, the skulls of our King Linsa and many others as trophies, as symbols of victory that they had won. They had stolen the land of African people. You see, that was the last war of resistance, 1909. In the year 1910, you were then the English, the people, white people who are English speaking, who came from England. They came together with the white people who came from the Netherlands or Dutch, after they fought something that was called the Anglo-Boer War. The Anglo means English, and the Boer means, it refers to the Dutch. The English-Dutch War. After they fought the Anglo-Boer War in 1910, they decided that, hey, we are brothers, we are all white. Let us form a union government against these blacks. And then in the year 1910, they formed a union of South Africa. And they made the union buildings as the seat of government. That is why today you still have union buildings that is in Pretoria. It was put in Pretoria in honor of a white man called Andries Pretorius. So Pretoria is named after Andries Pretorius. They were giving honor to Andries Pretorius. In fact, most of the cities and the towns here, Johannesburg was a man called Johannes. The city that is called Durban, it was General de Eben, a British military general who killed thousands of black people in KwaZulu-Natal. You see, even the person called John Hare, after which University of Fort Hare was named, he was called Colonel John Hare. He killed thousands of the Xhosa people in the Eastern Cape, you see. And all over the country, you have these names of these Europeans. So, Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe, he was born in a town called Graaf Reinet. It's in honor of a man who was called General de Graaf. And his wife, who was known as Reinet, you see. And so, it's very important that you know about this. As I speak about Sobukwe in the picture, this is another picture of the leader, Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe. Sobukwe, as I had said, he became part of the ANC Youth League. And in 1949, they wrote a document which was called the Program of Action of 1949. And they said that with this program of action, the main reason why black people are fighting in the struggle, the main reason why we are fighting is for the return of the land. There is no other way. There's nothing else we are fighting for. We are not fighting to go into a collaboration with white people. We don't want to go into white people's parliament, but we want the return of Umhlaba or Kokomeli, our King Bambata, that was stolen and robbed from us. You see, Africa for the Africans. And then in 1955, the ANC leaders went into Cape Town, up in Soweto, in a place called Cape Town. And they collaborated and they worked with Indians and Europeans and communists. And they founded and they signed a document that they called the Freedom Charter. Do you know the Freedom Charter? Yeah? Do you know the Freedom Charter? Yeah? I can't hear you. Do you know the Freedom Charter? What is the Freedom Charter? The Freedom Charter was a document that was drafted in 1955. And it was called the Declaration of the Rights. the Bill of Rights of African people, if you like. It was what it represented what black people wanted. In that document, one of the first things that it says, South Africa belongs to all who live in it, black and white. Do you know that? South Africa belongs to all who live in it, black and white. It's even written in your constitution today. So, Robert Sobukwe and the others who were within the ANC, they said that there is no way that you can say South Africa belongs to all who live in it. If I own this book is mine, and you come through that door and steal this book from me, rob this book from me, there's no way that you can come tomorrow and say that this book belongs to all who read it. This book does not belong to all who read the book. This book belongs to me, Thando. So, Sobukwe said that there is no way that you can say the land, Umhlaba wama Africa, belongs to everyone who lives in it. The land belongs to the indigenous people, the African people, the African majority. We can stay singahlala, siphile with everyone else, but the land belongs to you. We can all read this book, but who owns this book? It's me. You see, that is what Sobukwe said. And then Sobukwe were chased out of the ANC, and Sobukwe formed what was called the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania, the PAC, Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania. And it's important that you know that it was called the Pan-African Congress of Azania, not the Pan-African Congress of South Africa. Because Sobukwe said that when this country is liberated, when white people were colonizing this continent, for example, when they went into Ghana, they called it the Gold Coast. Why? Because they found gold in that place. When they went into another place in the, in the African continent, they call it the Ivory Coast. Because Babel told the Ivory called. You see, they called us in South Africa, like I said, in 1910. And also Sobukwe said that this country, when it's liberated, is Zimbabwe. It was known as Rhodesia. It was named after a white man called Cecil John Rhodes, or colonizer in Zimbabwe. So also Sobukwe said that when this country is liberated, it will be called Azania. The same with Steve Biko, when they came, they said, when this country is liberated, it will be called Azania. And the name Azania, it means the land of the blacks, the land of the African people. That's what Azania means. And Azania, like you learn about Songhai Empire, it was an old civilization and empire that existed in the African continent. I've been talking for too much, I realized, and you may be bored, so I'm going to stop so that, Sikulumen, you can ask questions if you have any other questions. But before I do that, as I want to emphasize that the PAC, its slogan, when it was founded, it said, Africa. When I say Africa, you say Israel. Africa. Israel. Africa. Israel. And this was their symbol. You know that the ANC has this fist, and it says Mandela. Also, Robert Sobukwe, they said, Africa. Africa. Israel. And then when I say Israel, you say Africa. Israel. Israel. Africa. Israel. That was what Sobukwe said within the PAC. And they had a motto. In motto yabo, they said, we serve, we suffer, and we sacrifice. We serve, we suffer, and we sacrifice. And Utatu Robert Sobukwe, through his life, he served, he suffered, and he sacrificed. So in the year after they formed the PAC in 1959, 1960, the following year, Utatu Robert Sobukwe told black people, leave your passes at home, mama passbook. He defied the pass laws and said, leave your passbook at home, break the law, and go to the nearest police station and ask Ama Police to arrest you because you are breaking the law. And do you know about something that was called Sharpeville? Do you know Sharpeville? Tell me about Sharpeville. Do you know Sharpeville? What happened in Sharpeville? Come on, guys. Social science, grade 11. What happened in Sharpeville? Eh? Tell me about the Sharpeville massacre. Eh? What happened on the 21 March 1960s that Sobukwe walked from his home, Emufulo, and walked to Orlando police station. In Sharpeville, the PAC march, the march of the PAC to leave the persons at home, it was led by a man who was called Nyaka Netsolo. Ntate Nyaka Netsolo, he led the march at PAC in Sharpeville. And they had all left Amapasiwabo at home. And what happened in Sharpeville is that Amapolisa opened fire and they shot and killed black people. About, they say, 69 people, but we know that it was more than 200 people who died and were killed in Sharpeville. The people were not only killed in Sharpeville, people were killed in Langa. The march of the PAC, Kwalanga, in Cape Town, it was led by a man who was called Utatu Philip Hosan. You see, people were also killed. In the Eastern Cape and all over the country, black people were killed. 21st of March, 1960. Sharpeville massacre. And when the Sharpeville massacre happened, that was a turning point in the struggle. Because black people then they formed a military. They decided to join the armed struggle. That is when the APLA, Azanian People's Liberation Army, as it was called, it was formed before. Then the next year, after 1960, 1961, Umkhonto Wesizwe was formed, MK, ANC. You see? And Umkhonto, you had black people who then moved out of the country, they ran into exile. Bamba Bayo to come and fight and defend the country, to fight for religious today. You see? So, after that, Thando Sobukwe, he was arrested on the 21st of March, and he was sentenced to 3 years in prison. He served his prison sentence at Pretoria Central, right here at Pretoria. It's called today. Pretoria Central Prison. 3 years sentence. After Sobukwe finished his 3-year sentence, in Parliament, Amabulu, they decided that Sobukwe was a dangerous man and that he will not be taken out of prison. They blindfolded him and they put him on a plane and they flew him to Cape Town. He was sent to Robben Island, Robert Sobukwe. At Robben Island, Robert Sobukwe, he stayed alone, all alone. All the other prisoners used to see each other, they stayed in cells, they shared. Sobukwe was alone. He was guarded 24/7 by dogs and onogada guards, prison warders. Because he was called the most dangerous man in South Africa by people like Abofer Vote, you see, and the parliament, the white South African parliament. For 6 years, Sobukwe stayed on Robben Island alone, isolated. Family yake was only allowed to see him from time to time. Imagine when, as young as you are not allowed to see your father. Your father is kept on an island in prison. Imagine Leon. 4 of his children, Udinile Sobukwe, Umiliswa Sobukwe, Udedani Amawele, twins, Dedani Zizwe, and Daningebo Sobukwe. The 4 children, Maka Robert Sobukwe, you see. So, like I said, in Kulmega Kulu, and I don't want to bore you, I know what in Yaborega is used, I know you. So, but I want you to know about this man called Robert Sobukwe. And today, you have mobile phones. Do your own research about Robert Sobukwe. Who was this great man? Because in South Africa, the freedom that we so-called enjoy, democracy, it was not only fought by one man called Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela is not the only freedom fighter who suffered and who struggled for a liberation in this. You had other leaders like Robert Sobukwe who suffered greatly you had a man called Bantu Stephen Biko that I spoke about, and I want to show you a picture which I know you have never seen. I know you have never seen this picture of Steve Biko. And I want to show you what white people did to Steve Biko for you to enjoy this so-called freedom that you enjoy today. Steve Biko, the founder of the Black Consciousness, wayefundisa ukuthi mntwana omnyama zithande, be black and proud. He was killed. They killed him. Steve Biko. On the 12th of September, 1977, Steve Biko was chained. Bamfaka at the back of a police van, naked, as he was born. Chained. They transported him all the way from PE for 1,200 kilometers right here to a Pretoria Central. Steve Biko died here, Abe Pretoria. The Hosi Mampuru, as it is called today. Pretoria Central Prison. Steve Biko. This picture was taken right here at Pretoria Central. So, when you speak about leaders who fought for a liberation struggle, when they ask you in your social sciences or anywhere to write and to do comprehension or whatever on other leaders, don't only think about a man called Nelson Mandela. There are people like Steve Biko. Do more research on Steve Biko. Do more research on black consciousness. You are young today. You have schools as Koyola all around. I mean, I think last year or last of last year, there's this girl called Zuleka Patel. They were fighting for her because they were being told, no, as a black child, you cannot have your own hair. In Wele Zako, you need to make them look more white. You need to ban in Wele Zako with something called the chemicals called the relaxers. And those girls, the Pretoria girls, they fought against that thing. They were inspired by people like Steve Biko and black consciousness. Because Steve Biko told you, be black and proud, love yourself. And don't be misled by white people into thinking that when you are black skinned, you are an inferior being. Or when you have your hair, you are ugly. And that you need to look like a white person in order for you to be considered to be beautiful. I want to show you pictures of, you know what? White people used to do to your African ancestors. We used to be chained like Islwanyana, like cattle and dogs. And this is what we talk about when we talk colonialism. We talk racism, apartheid. This is what we were fighting against. You see, Katsitwa, you were freed. This is what they are talking about. You said to me that they are teaching you about the Songhai empires. And I said they need to teach you more about Egypt. This is a country, this is a university in Egypt. It was called the Temple of Hatshepsut. The first university in the world was built in Africa. University of Ghana. It was built by black people. So you did not have to wait for Europeans or white people to come from Europe in order to know education. You see, it was called the Temple of Hatshepsut. And if you can see it, they chiseled Inta by a mountain to build this. The other one is in a place called Mali. It's called Sankore Okanye Timbuktu. That was one of the oldest universities in the world. You see in Africa. You need to see these pictures. As young as you are in a museum here. These pictures, they will never show them in the classrooms. That is why these students, the fees must fall. There's decolonized education. Nani, in high school, you need decolonized education. Education, it must talk to you, who you are as a black child. They must teach you about your own history, things that you can relate to. This was a soldier, a black man, who was fighting for freedom. And he was killed for fighting for Mhlaba, like the other kings I showed you earlier. He was from Congo. He was the person who led the Congo to independence. He was the first president or the prime minister of the Congo. Do you know what happened to Patrice Lumumba? Patrice Lumumba, he was shot. There is even a movie that you can watch on Patrice Lumumba, the story of Patrice Lumumba. By Bambamba, they arrested him, the Belgians and the Americans. They tied him to a tree. They shot Patrice Lumumba. They killed him. Bah, 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 3 times. After killing Patrice Lumumba, they chopped off his body. They sliced the body into pieces. After they sliced the body into pieces, they put it into a drum. They put acid on top of Patrice Lumumba's body. There is not a piece of Patrice Lumumba's grave or body that we can see. Amathambo wakhe were dissolved with acid. Patrice Lumumba, the leader from Congo, you see. So when they teach you nge Congo today, nizwa ko Congo kuthiwa there's many wars. Ingathi kuyaliwa koma Congo, bayalwa koma Uganda. It's because of Europeans. Because Congo is the richest part of the whole entire world. Do you know that without Congo, you would not have this thing called a cell phone? A cell phone, in order for them to make a cell phone, they steal a mineral from a Congo. It's called coltan and cobalt. In order for them to make this thing called laptops, in order for them to make those screens of television, they need to have coltan and cobalt. That is why you have countries in Africa that are always fighting. There's infighting. It's because of these white countries, Europeans, the Americans. They make the war. They give finances to those wars so that Africa keep on fighting amongst themselves while they go and rape the resources and take the resources. So I'm going to end it there. I wanted to just speak and say the African history is world history. You were the first people who were created by God as black children and black women. You must be black and proud and love yourself. Love the history. And even nobody pays school, you're going to grade 12 next year. From grade 12, you're going to go into university. Like I'm saying, don't be ignorant in the classroom. I know what education is sometimes. They get bored at school. All you want to go and do at school is just to go and have fun with your friends. But I'm telling you, you have technology, you have Google, research about blackness, about your history. Research about leaders like Patrice Lumumba, Steve Biko, Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe, you see, and all these other beautiful other leaders I told you about. Research about Mama Veronica Sobukwe. Veronica Sobukwe, she was the wife of Robert Sobukwe. She recently died last year. Many of you know about Mandela, but you don't know about Mamu Veronica Sobukwe. The wife of Steve Biko. Do you know her name? She's still alive. She's in the Eastern Cape, in a town called King William's Town, Ekinsburg. The name of the township. You see that Umamunseki Biko is at today. So with those few words, let me end it there. You see, because like I'm saying, I can see, you know, the other student there is very drowsy and bored, you see. But I hope I didn't bore you too much, you see. And I hope that you have learned something, and hopefully you have some questions or you have something that you want to say. So now I give the opportunity to you. If you have any questions, you want to say anything, want to ask anything about Sobukwe, about history, about anything they teach you in social sciences, anything that you want to ask me, this is the moment now for you to ask. Yes, daughter. And you must just speak up, ne? One of the things that Steve Biko taught is that we as black children, we must have self-confidence. Another man who taught about self-confidence was called Marcus Garvey. Ibane confidence as umntwana omnyama. You see, because abelungu made us to look down and be scared of speaking. So you must have self-confidence. We are good. No one here can do anything to you. Speak out loud when you are talking and speak from your heart. Speak, daughter.
You said that Robert Sobukwe was one of the people who were fighting for Africa. But why are people saying that Nelson Mandela this, Nelson Mandela that? Each and every one saying Nelson Mandela fought for us. Nelson Mandela is defeated at the information.
The reason, that's a very good question, brilliant question. The daughter is asking Ubuti, why is it that we are never taught anything about Robert Sobukwe? We are only taught about Nelson Mandela this, Nelson Mandela that. Why are you not taught about the other leader? The reason for that is because about Nelson Mandela, they were loved by white people. They were incorporated by white people. They worked with white people. You remember I say in 1955, Thando Sipuye said that we cannot collaborate with white people. We as black people need to lead this struggle on our own. They said Africa for Africans. Black man and black woman, let's hold each other like this and fight our own struggle without white people. If white people want to help us, they must fight the struggle amongst other white people and teach other white people not to be racist. Teach them to change their mind and not be racist. But they must not come amongst us. Bafunubazi leaders amongst us. But Obabu Mandela, they collaborated. They worked with white people. Even in the 1990s, you see, the history tells us in 1990, Thando Mandela was not released on the 11th of April 1990. Thando Mandela spent only 18 years at Robben Island. 18 years. He was transferred from Robben Island and he went into Pollsmoor prison. He spent other years at Pollsmoor. When he was in Pollsmoor, he was transferred from a Pollsmoor. He went into a Victor Fester prison. It was a house where he was kept. Thando Mandela in 1985, he was wearing suits and meeting up with P.W. Botha for secret meetings and negotiations. You see. So there are other people who say Babo Mandela and the ANC in general, they are people who did not serve Abantu Abamnyama. That is why today you can have 44 people killed Americano. 44. 44 black people were killed. Americana, 2016. 2016, eh? If I'm not mistaken, yeah. But right now, no one was arrested. A common who is in prison today. No one is in jail for killing 44 people. So on the side on TV, Amapoisa are shot and killed. Americana is not different from Sharpeville. You see? So the reason is because about Thando Sipuye akufundiswa ngabo in the curriculum. Because Thando Sipuye are considered dangerous. Even after they died, 41 years ago, Sobukwe died. 41 years ago. But the ideas are still considered to be dangerous. That is why I'm saying, you young children, go and do your own research about these people. If they don't teach you about them in the classroom, you must ask your teacher, why are they teaching you about Robert Sobukwe? Why is it that they are only teaching you about Thando Mandela? Do you know that the longest person who spent years at Robben Island, whose name Ikamalake Uban? No. His name was Jeff Masemula. Jeff Masemula. He was a member of the PAC and he worked with Robert Sobukwe. He spent 28 years on Robben Island. Babo Mandela arrived on Robben Island. Jeff Masemula was there. They left Robben Island. Masemula was on Robben Island. Jeff Masemula. These are the people, you do not have their statues anywhere in the country. You do not have towns that are named after them, Okanyama buildings named after them, because they are considered to be dangerous. So learn about them, learn about their ideas, learn about the pan-Africanism. In Africanism, Africanism. You see, Africa is related. What were they talking about, Lababan? You see. So that is the reason why, even in the education curriculum, that is why I spoke earlier and said, Fismasford was saying, we want decolonial education. Free decolonial education. Free quality decolonial education. Because the education system is white. It teaches us about white things only. They teach us only about white stories and white history. They don't teach us about black history. For example, do you learn anything about a Jewish Holocaust? You don't know about Jewish Holocaust. A Jewish Holocaust is something that they say that 6 million people were killed by a white man called Hitler. Adolf Hitler killed 6 million Jews in Germany. And they call it the Jewish Holocaust. And when they teach about Adolf Hitler and the Jewish Holocaust, they say it's the greatest tragedy. It's the greatest atrocity that ever happened in the world. But I'm telling you now, through slavery, transatlantic slavery, when black people were taken in slavery, more than 100 million black people were killed. 100 million. 6 million. 100 million. 6 million Jews. 100 million black people were killed only with slavery. And Kulumi about colonialism. And Kulumi about apartheid. You see, and everything else that black people suffered from. Only slavery. More than 100 black people were killed. So you need to, when they teach you, maybe next year they will teach you about Jewish Holocaust. Or when you hear anyone saying anything about Jewish Holocaust, ask them about the African Holocaust. Ask them, what about the Black Holocaust? What about the African people who were killed in Africa? More than 100 million black people that were killed. When will you teach me about the black and the African Holocaust? You see, and that is where I will end it, my Africa. Israel Africa. Israel Africa. Yes. Give thanks.